Hello, everyone, and welcome to an admittedly late, well, for today, bonus episode of History with the Bard. This is going to be completely unscripted because I didn't figure out what I was going to talk about until about the last 10 minutes and did not have a lot of time to write up a script. So, honestly, I didn't even plan to do this today. Well, I did, but I was busy with other things for most of the day. So, what we're going to talk about tonight is kind of a big deal right now. It's important in the here and now, but you need a lot of information from a while ago to adequately understand what's happening. Let's let this guy
Blessings
talk.
of heaven be upon you, Empress Wu Zetian, most beautiful and haughty ruler of China. O great Empress, whose shadow causes the flowers to blossom and the rivers to flow. You are the leader of the Chinese, the oldest and the greatest civilization that humanity has ever produced. China's history stretches back into the mists of time, its people achieving many great things long before the other upstart civilizations were even conceived. China's contributions to the arts and sciences are too many and too wondrous to do justice to. The printing press,
There
gunpowder.
we go. We should do an episode on Wu Zhe Shen one of these days. I'll put that on the list. I should make a list. Anyway, like I was saying, it's important to what's going to happen in the future, but to understand it, you really have to know what's been going on for a while and what happened a while ago. So we're going to talk about Hong Kong. Recently, if I am remembering right, it has been announced that the terms and conditions of Hong Kong's sort of separate but separate. What is it? Separate but the same deal with China, I guess, is what we'll call it. Their deal with China right now, well, a little while ago, was that they would remain a separate governmental entity that existed within China's borders and ultimately answered to China, but was not necessarily part of China. This is actually due to an incident that happened. What? I want to say just before World War One. Could be wrong. I'm not the best with actual dates, just sequences of events. Um, but yeah, I think it happened a little bit before World War One. During it would have happened right after America broke away from uh, right after America broke away from the United King or from Britain, I guess. Um, so back during this time frame, uh, um, Britain was sort of having a lot of trouble with finances. It had become easily one of the largest countries in the world. Are we in America? No, we can't be. That's the jungle. It had easily become one of the largest countries in the world. But with all of the wars it had been fighting, um, with all of the things happening during its time, with all of the expansion and whatnot, they were having some problems. Monetarily drained, especially after spending so much to fund the invasion of India by the East India Trading Company. It's the East, I think it was the East India Trading Company. Yeah, it was. It was definitely that company. I was not 100% on the name. The East India Trading Company, who had taken out huge loans again or from the British authorities to fund this war, based on the idea that it would offer a huge increase in. That's not what I want. A huge increase in uh, funding and goods and services based on the fact that the tea trade in China or in India was massive. So they funded it, and it didn't work out as well as they would have liked. So they had to find another way to uh, get money, especially the East India Trade Company. So they struggled to figure out what they were going to do. At one point, they turned to China and markets in China. Now, the idea... What's going on here? Are we having problems again? Am I just talking over something that's broken? I can't tell because my fucking Twitch stream just blew up on me. Okay, let's just reload that then. Take a couple of seconds. But yeah, so initially their idea was, hey, let's trade with China. China's a pretty thriving area. And for the most part, they weren't incorrect. A lot of money to be found in China at the time. But China had a lot of bureaucratic red tape. It had, okay, I think it was just my Twitch stream being weird. China had a lot of bureaucratic red tape. It had a lot of problems for Britain, mostly due to the fact that China really didn't give a fuck what Britain did. They didn't really care what Britain needed at any given point in time. So, rather than be a trade partner like you would think today, with, you know, plenty of thought for what the other party was going through, they basically were just like, whatever, you need us more than we need you, and ignored the crap out of anything that Britain wanted, levied incredibly strenuous taxing situations, and even trading with China in the first place was difficult, largely because Britain was only allowed to enter China by one of two cities. Was it two or one? I think it was two, and then something happened later on that would make it one. That would reduce the amount of... Let's just go small. We're not going to be playing for very long, probably. Would reduce the amount of trust between China... Oh! I remember what it was. Okay, so, yeah, we're going to keep going with this. So, China and Britain are trading. Britain's allowed to enter China through two separate ports, both far away from the capital, and in general, just kind of a bad situation for the British all around. But after a little while, the British became upset with this situation, largely due to the fact that it was really hard on them. They didn't get a whole lot of cash out of it. Profits that they could be getting just weren't happening. So they had to come up with another way to handle it. And the way they decided to handle it was to send someone into China to deliberately ask for... Oh man, that's a lot of dudes. That's fine. To deliberately ask the emperor personally for, more lenient trade, things of that nature. And this is where things get a little bit awkward, because China had a very we're the best around kind of viewpoint on the world, and didn't particularly care for people just marching in and dealing with, whatever the problems they decided they had. So, they attempted, I want to say... Oh, that's handy. Yeah, sure, why not? Well, let's... Yeah, sure, why not? But yeah, so they weren't accustomed to people doing whatever they wanted within their borders, and didn't fully understand what the British were doing. They were actually under the impression at the time that it was a sort of tribute mission. So the British sent their emissary in, and he was like, hey, look at all these things we've got. Look at all these shiny trinkets we've got that we totally want you to have because you're the emperor and we want your goodwill. Can we probably have, better trade situation? And because of problems with translations, problems with understanding what was happening, what ended up happening was the Oh, we've already got spearmint, and that's out of date. Oh well. The fuck. Sorry. The emperor was like, yeah, thanks for all the tribute, but no, things are working out just fine for us. They're going to stay exactly how they are. To which the British weren't particularly happy, but it's not like they could afford to start a war right now. So the British just had to find another way to make money. And they did. Through questionable means.
Thou shalt not.
The means, of course, being opium. Opium was something that grew wild, poppy was something that grew wild in India and was incredibly popular in the underground. So, kill that. So they picked it up and started selling it. As you know, opiates are incredibly addictive. All kinds of problems, but they sold, so the East India Company didn't have that big of a problem with it. Naturally, China, seeing all of its people, and by extension, all of the money those people had going to opiates coming in from outside of the country, freaked out.